All right, all you devils out there, happy Friday. Here we are, the 14th of May, just after noon for me here in Austin. So, of course, we'll get an update on Bitcoin. So, this is an interesting week. Oh, let's start out here. So, I've got a couple of scenarios here to look at. Some of these we've visited before. In fact, these are two counts that let me take that off. Two counts we've considered. I think we're getting a little more clarity here. Neither of the two counts here we're going to look at can be eliminated, but I think the market's giving us, I think, some long-term information here about where the next opportunity to enter on the long side is. So let me explain a little bit. So here again, I'm working off a 3-day. Now we've looked at this on the weekly as well, just to emphasize, as we've talked about the last, 2-3 weeks. Again, credit to Dave the Wave, who recognized this. In log scale, if we went to a logarithmic MACD, we had the cross here as we were topping up here. In fact, it was right about here on the weekly. So as we have rolled over here in the MACD with momentum just drifting lower here, well, that might be kind of interesting to watch here on the 3-day to see if we get an early turn on that. Just eyeballing here. We're certainly getting plenty of perspective here. Now, this is likely... Well, let me say, this is likely the count that most Elliotticians, if you first draw it up and just, you're based off what your eye is going to see, this is the count that I see circulating a lot, and I think it's perfectly valid, right? So there's no question here coming off our 18 low to our COVID low. You can certainly complete an impulse here. Well, let's just carry this through. There's a couple of things interesting here. So length of the 1 projected from the 2, if indeed this is the 3 relative to that 1, 2, I'm always a little suspect of a pivot here that's not really technical. Now we're going to look at an alternate here to suggest that, okay, maybe, but just in terms of the Elliott, the wave relationship here, for a major top to be in between the 175 and the 100, it's not like it's not possible or we've never seen it before. It's just I'm suspect of that as the major top. Well, here, so the top of the trend off of the COVID low. Certainly, something has topped here. It's just a question of what it is. So this would be perfectly valid. So we just okay. Well, so we'll say, all right, perhaps we're not going to have a technical pivot here for the top of this 3, right? Again, I remain a little bit suspicious of that. Nonetheless, if this is 1, 2, and we were just standard ops, right, wouldn't matter what the chart was, whether we were looking at a 3-day, a weekly, a 1 minute, a 3-day, it just wouldn't matter, right? Same approach always. That's the value of it. Well, if we're thinking 2 and 3 is done, and we're okay. Well, here's the prime zone between the 23 and the 38 for a good wave 4. We also know that commonly you'd look to the range of the prior 3, 4. Now I'm taking bodies rather than wicks, just because I think that's going to be an important area here if we do start to sell off further. But just this area here would be a common retracement point for the 4 at the higher degree to come back to this level. It's more of a guideline here, but it would be an area that would make sense. You could certainly see how the Vegas wave could be arcing up here if we're going to roll over somewhere in this zone here. Vegas wave is going to be close by. We certainly got some good distance from it here, and as if we were to come back to it, wouldn't be surprising. So anywhere in this zone would be an area of interest. You'd certainly say that. So the 23 is at 33 and change. Well, that's pretty good sell-off from what was our top here at 65-ish. It's hard to argue with it, right? It's hard not to think. Now, so it just becomes, right, is that what we're anticipating, that we're going to come down that far? We're going to fall $30,000 in value? It's certainly possible. Oh, there's a couple other little technical nuggets to take note of here. Oh, let's see if I can find them here. So number 1 here, we've got our this set of median lines here. So you might tee that up and say, okay, well, I can understand the geometry. If we came down here to the 23 at the median line, that would make sense. I could see this will often be a magnet to the market we'd have some confluence here. We'd have the 23 from the length of the 2 through the proposed pivot of the 3. We'd have the prior 3, 4. Right, this area of consolidation here where we went back and forth, and then as the trend carried on, and we'd have the median line all right here at 33 and change, and call it 33.8. Well, if that comes, and you know, there's no telling, right, how far, what kind of shape. I mean, this could be, we could be, all right, I mean, there's a couple of different Elliott routes that could be happening here. Oh shit, come here. This could be a B, right? It seems like a long, that would be a big C, but now we are in log scale, so it's certainly possible. It's like this would certainly be an area to be on high alert for opportunity. Let's just suggest that. Now, well, let me look at it this way here as well, just to kind of take that off and say, okay, is there something else, right? So if it's not going to be a fib relationship of swing, could there be another algo that would be close there that would give us something to look at? Well, if I take this one, oh, here, let's hide that one. And just, again, all I'm doing is just looking for confluence zones. I'm looking for something technical. Well, if I go back to my wolf range, the range expansion, well, this kind of sparked my interest. So again, I'm tick to tick, right? I've just used the magnet to get these right on the tick. So all I'm doing is just the length of the wave one, the range expansion. That's exactly 100% of it. Now we get through by a few ticks, it's no question. But I would be curious about whether if that algo is really influencing the market. Let's look for something internal. So that I went to the internal one. It looks quite similar here. So again, I'm just taking the length of this proposed wave one, the shallow two, right? So there is no retracement value. It's simply the range of the one expanded up. Now here I go 100% to get that proposed three. So, and if you look at the overshoot here, they're almost identical within $1 or two. Very close. So it makes me think, okay, this is an algo that's in play here. Again, it's just range expansion. It's a simple concept, right? Just length of the range expanded up 100%. Now note, I'm in log scale. If you try and duplicate this out of log, you won't get the same result. But so now I can kind of lean in a little bit more to the idea, okay, it's not a fib relationship, but perhaps I've got range expansion that explains the pivot here. Okay, I can kind of live with that. Well, if we're going to come down, it's kind of the same idea here. We'd still be looking. It wouldn't change where you'd be anticipating the retracement to find support, right? It would still be. Well, shit, we can just do it this way. You still be. This is where you're. Well, say it this way. I'd certainly be paying attention here for setups here to get long if we come into this range, and that's a pretty good range, right? I mean, somewhere from 40, which is almost. It's a 12K range, right? So remember, log distorts to your eyes. So we're from 40K to well, shit, it's really a 10K. So it's a damn near 30 to 40. I mean, a big range, right? So not an area to be heading into it with leverage, but potentially now an area that you could ladder into. Again, note the Vegas wave right there of interest. So if it were me, I would do it this way. In fact, I fully intend to. Right, so if I got this, here, let's see if I can do this. Let's go to 25s, right? So I've got increments of 25 here. I'd buy at the break. I'd add, continue to add. I'd look to ladder in for the proposed scenario here that we might come down here, and if we were to come all the way to the low, then look for that to come out, right? So size has to be allocated according to what's appropriate for your account size, right? Your risk tolerance. What could you manage to get? So all I've done is just splitting them by 25%. That's how I would do it. Let me rephrase. That's how I intend to do it. So if we come down here, that's where I start. I'll start right at 40. Now there's an argument to be made for possibly something a little bit ahead of that. We'll look at that in just a sec. But that's a very reasonable approach for a longer-term trader to say, all right, if we come down here, I'd be anticipating support to be found here. And then if we start moving up, right, again, trading without leverage, that you should be well positioned here. It's not an approach for everybody. That's just one that you might consider. So let me get this out of here. All right, so is there an alternative? So this, I suppose you'd have to argue that this is the most reasonable primary, but there is a secondary count here that has to be considered. Now we've looked at these again a couple of times, but let's just revisit this real quickly here. So if that being one scenario here, there is an alternate here that we've looked at, and that would be that. And of course, this is the Oh God! I mean, since it formed, right, we knew this area here was going to be what was going the challenge for the Elliottician, because there's no clear two. Is it 1 2 1 2, or is that just the 1 2? Because of that, I mean, I remember talking about it. We were going to be making educated guesses the whole way because we can't clearly define the two, right? With regards to this impulse, this was always going to be a problem for the Elliottician trying to count waves. Well, what's the alternate here? What if we keep going, right? So if we come down here, maybe we don't make this range down here. For all we know, the pivot's in, right? And we start going. Well, you've got to have a scenario that would accommodate that. So what does that look like? Well, I come back here, you'd likely have to do it as a 1 2 1 2 3 4 5, because the impulse in here, and again, we've looked at this before, this impulse, right, works just fine, right? Almost the same as the other one. It's just the 1 2 that changes. So very clear, that could very easily be the 3. Well, again, what would that change? Well, not a lot. If we're pulling from this as the proposed 2, they're so close, right? So it's not going to be a dramatic change. They're so close. Get it right on that, right? Because so you potentially are running flat into a 1 2 3 4 5. Same zone. More bullish. I'm being more bullish, and despite the range expansion, still a little suspect of that as the wave 3 high. I think this count has to be considered equally valid, right? So anything down here, if we get the opportunity, if it's offered down here, we've been talking about under 42 would be an area to start buying. Well, now we changed that. That's just slightly changed from what we're just looking at, but essentially it's the same range. It's the prior 3 4. So if we got right here, what are we at there? That's 41. 42, I think, is the pivot here. It's 43 and change. So we're right in that pocket. If not the whole load, but I'd certainly take a bite there. Now, if we're coming much lower here, because certainly we could come down again, right, as we just looked at, there's the Vegas wave. That doesn't change. We're going to sit right here at the median line. I'd do the same thing, right? If we're coming down here, right, start a little bit here, a little bit here, I'd be looking for signs of traction, and then if we got something like that, now you can add be a little bit more aggressive. Perhaps we're going up to get that to complete the 5th of what would be the 3rd at this degree. So it just is valid, right? But of course, this has yet to happen. That needs to happen. Then we lock into the 3 up here. Here's a reasonable target. So that's essentially 100. Back to the median line. Up here, what do we got there? Over 200. Well, we used Tim Draper. What did he say? 250. There's 250 right there. Certainly, you can certainly see the path there, right? But of course, this is what is required for us to be thinking, oh, right, is that the top of the 3 now? Have we changed this? Because that would change things over here, right? If we're back here and we're going higher, well, you'd be immediately rethinking that, because this would be unusually shallow for that to be the 4. So if that's the scenario we see, most likely you'd abandon this count. Well, shit, I mean, it depends on the trader, right? You'd abandon for this one, thinking that was the internal 3, not the larger 3 here. Right? I guess I am in different degrees, but be the same idea, right? That this 3 is still to come, right? This one here has it. Oh shit! Here, let's just right. This one has it in. How do you know? Well, you're not going to know. You're not going to know until we see either a push lower here to challenge this structure, come back into that zone, right? Test the. You're going to see new sellers coming in here, because buyers here, right? You can just see it, right? These buyers here are going to defend right there, right? They're going to defend those longs. So if they come down here, right? Again, there we are. That's 41 and change in that pocket 41, 42 window, and that goes higher. You're going to reevaluate here, because that would be just a very unusually shallow pivot for the 4. Again, it's not possible. That's not what I'm saying. It's just it would be unusual. So your thought process would be, whoa, that's kind of shallow for the dominant 4, for the largest, the highest degree 4. So is there another way to count that, right? Now you're back here dealing with the 1 2, right? As I have it here. So you've got 2 scenarios here. people are leaning on me for this count, but I still think there's more to go here. I'm not. That is not a popular view. I got a few of my members agree with me here, but most of my team thinks this is where we are. So I remain a bit of a holdout here that there's still more to come here. But regardless of how we end up counting it, which we won't be able to count it definitively until it's done, right? And then we can work backwards. Either way, anything down here under 42, well, shit, from 42 to 30, you got to be looking at areas to be adding. Right, and spread it out. Right, you don't want to load yourself so heavily so that if it falls further, you're so underwater, or you're levered up, or you're liquidated. This should be something you're looking at as part of a damn near, a 3-year plan. I mean, this could be 22, 23 before this entire count shit. This could be out here. No telling how long before we're out here looking at some of the completion projections here in time. I mean, could be 22, could be 23, right? There's no way to know that. So what do? Well, let's go look at it in a little more detail and just kind of break down what we've got here. Oh, I'm just looking at a couple of things here. Let me recreate this here so we can look at this. It'll make a little more sense. So I'm just working off of the idea. So here's that 3 to 4, that potential target here if we're going to retrace. And again, just a tendency of where you might anticipate looking for support. Well, I'm just taking the wick low, and again, just as we know, right, we've talked about this many times. Algorithm doesn't care about the Elliott count, right? It just cares about the dominant. Right, swing low to swing high, that's all it's going to see. Right, so here comes the 50, here comes the golden zone. These are all potential reaction points. Now we're getting this little double bottom here at the 38. Again, we don't have this identified as an algorithm, but you can see, technical traders may have been here, and there's more to it than just that. So let's try and recreate this here as a potential scenario. If this completed our top here, so if we go 3, 4, and this is the 5 at that degree, which certainly is a possibility. Well, we go into the series of 3s. Well, we got an ABC here, an ABC here. This looks like 5. So you can look at this and think, all right, if we're not making a major retrace, this potentially now coming down here would give us we'd have a W. ABC into a W, ABC into an X, ABC into a Y, which would bring us right to the edge here, which is 42 change, right into the pocket here. And then if we put that back together, so if we go off of that low up to that pivot high, now let's get my measure move back here. So here I'm going to go to the algo only. Let's do this one. All right, so here's our 50 and our 618. All right, here would be a target. Now, this actually might complicate the Elliott count. If we're going to pivot here at 43, golden zone down here at 39, well, we'd have to revisit here. That would give this more potential, right? I would prefer this count to this count because it would be so shallow for the 4. But it would make sense if we're going to get a shallow 4 here. All right, and go up to the 5, then I'd be back to leaning into the dominant 3. The largest degree 3 is not done yet, because this would be more common. If it's going to be shallow and we're just going to go sideways, more likely a 4 in that scenario here. So that would give us the potential here for this to realize here either at the 50 or the golden zone here to look for one more kick up, looking to complete either this 3. I mean, it could be this 3 again. We're talking about degrees here. Or could be the 5 of that 3. So I absolutely love it down here. All right, how do you not, right? Just working off of what I've shown you guys for thousands of videos, 3 years of doing these. If you come into this zone, we got to at least pay attention here. I mean, again, you can see an Elliott count here. It's a little funky. I think less likely here. We had looked at this previously. I think that it's now become less likely that we would go 1, 2, and we're going to have an extension here. That seems less likely. I think either way, we're searching for a 4, and we had considered the possibility that perhaps it was 1, 2, and now with this deeper sell-off, this is much more looking to me like a 4. all of this complexity. You know, I would love to be wrong. If we're going to have an extension in the fifth and this were to play as 1-2, I wouldn't be disappointed, but I wouldn't. That's not what I'm putting on my charts anymore. I think that's come and gone with the Elon sell-off here and the market's reaction to that. Along those lines here, let me just give you two good sources here to consider, because I would imagine if you're watching this, you've read a little bit about it, what Elon's issues are. Seems odd, right, that he would come to that so late, but he has nonetheless. Two things that I would encourage you to read if you haven't read them already. If you're not on Pomp's letter, Anthony Pompliano's, which if you're watching this, you probably are, but I would read the Pomp letter. Some interesting insight into potentially a bit of shenanigans going on there. But what I would read in the broader sense, if you're a little concerned of, shit, man, do I really want to be longing all this Bitcoin if it's such dirty money, bad for the environment? I would strongly encourage you to come over to Michael Saylor's. Maybe you've read it, right? Again, if you're watching this, you're likely following him. You should absolutely read this thread. All right, he put it out 23 hours ago. Well, I mean, this little silly bit he did here for the Lily Show. But this thread here, very much worth reading. It's just full of text now. But the summary here is, right, it's a good long, it's a thread that he puts through. Each point, take note, right? Take the time to read that. Would encourage you to do that. All right, let's come back over here to this lower degree count here, where it's getting a bit sloppy. Now, a couple things to note here, just little nuggets here to pass along here. We were talking about this being a dangerous place to be entering the market, right? We talked about this last week, how, who's buying there, right? Retail's buying the breakout. Look at how they get crushed, right? Just like here, they were selling, again, I harped on this last week, but here's the same thing, right? They're taking the breakout down, they get raped. Over here, same thing. Same thing, right? It's just over and over and over again. It's the same thing. Breakout, killed. Here, well, maybe a breakout. It's just, you don't, that's not the way to make money in the markets, guys, buying breakouts. Certainly not in crypto, right? Again, as I've said, you can get away with it in equities, different trading dynamics, but in FX, crypto, futures, double tops and bottoms pay a lot of mortgages out in the Hamptons. So mindful of that. Okay, so coming down here, if we're in some sort of a complex correction here, well, that certainly works as a 5. This it's a little squeezed, but you got to go A, B, C. You got to double top. Well, there it is again, right? Double top into the B. 1, 2. We come down here. Now this has gotten a little squirrely down here because you have this big pump wick. Now look at that wick, right? So just in the same line of thinking here. So this is breakout traders here. This is what's interesting here is that this was a push to try and get more stops there, which fails. So suggesting the strength here. Or you could look at it this way and say, okay, well, what did the breakout traders trade off of? We're free falling. Elon doesn't like it. Oh, we'll get it this time. Well, that's 1, 2, 3, and it's when they're that squirrely, always a good idea to look at it in a line chart, right? So there's 5, 3, looks like there's the 5 is in there. So working on the 4, now you gotta pay attention to those wicks here for potential retracement zones. But looking at that, all right, if that's 3, well, right off the bat, let's just measure them. Let's just see how they look relative to what we might inspect. Well, at least I've got something technical here. It's interesting here. The first push went 1618, 175, but then we got another kick to 272 or 227. Failure to get all those stops right there, because there was their fangs were out here trying to pump all that stuff before they ripped it back up. They didn't get it. So if this is going to play as the 3, well, then likely you'd just be looking at this as a corrective 4, some sort of an A, a B, and a C going in before we come down. We didn't as good of a 2, but if I look here and go through that pivot, well, we've come just to the 50, right? Just a tick in front of the 50. Now look what we get down here. All right, let's take that up a degree. All right, so candidate down here for the Y, well, what do we got right here? That's 42 right there. We've been talking about 42, or if it's offered under 42, heads up. Well, let's see, what else we got here? I think there's a set of median lines that come in down here. keep an eye on those. We've already tagged it once, right? So your 80% is right here. This was not a golden, because the golden was all up here, right? So we had wicks going through. Breakout traders were so sure they were going to get it, right? Elon killed that idea. Now, as we retrace here, look, we're coming back to this structure here. So coming right to the 50 here, right, would kind of have you leaning that direction. So I'm not saying that this is inevitable, but right now it certainly looks like path of least resistance could be lower, and you'd get a clean finish here. You'd get a cleaner 5 on this proposed C relative to the ABC. Now, in addition to that, right, we always want to look for as much confluence as we can. So if I put that right there, so now I'd get 100% on, it's literally on top of the 50. It's on, which is 2 ticks in front of the algo target. So do you see this, well, what do I want here? The cluster of confluence that's building right here. Now, I'd fatten that up a little bit, allow for, right, being Bitcoin, allow for a little volatility here. So here we're sitting here, that's 41,975. Now let's just back up a little bit and consider where we would be if we get offered down here. Well, we've got a dominant swing low to a dominant swing high that'd be putting us right at the 50. We've got the makings of a complex correction, and whether or not this gets squeezed into a diagonal. So a lot of Elliottians think this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that we're doing the ABC correction, which, if you prefer to count it that way, I don't have any issue with that. One way or another, something topped up here. The sequence of 3s has me leaning into it being more corrective rather than a topping pattern up here. In terms of a diagonal, this just looks like 3, 3, 5, 3, 5, right? So the WXY is certainly valid until it either blows up by pushing higher or dramatically falls lower, and this turns into a deeper retracement, which is certainly possible. But look at the nice confluence here. Now, the other thing here, which I had when we started, I just out of curiosity say, okay, well, what else is there? Well, I went to my fixed range here, and I just went from the absolute low to the absolute high. There's POC. Well, that helps me understand why we stopped here. So when you're looking at this and you're going, shit, man, Elon doesn't like it. Why is it stopping there? Well, here's the POC. So you just kind of run that across, and you can kind of understand, get it right there. Oh, yeah, we got the extreme pump wick went through it, but this was generally, this area here at 47.8, this is generally where we found support, despite the one wick that went through and was quickly rejected. So that kind of caught my attention. At least, it's always, you got to ask yourself, why do we stop there? Why? There's... I will propose to you, there are no random pivots, so why do we stop there? There has to be an explanation for it, not just more buyers than sellers, so we stop there. It's always technical. All right, so if I pull this off here, so now having established that we've got that, right? Well, he had the 618 here as well, but I'll pull that off. So we've got a nice little confluence point here. This pivot here is 41.7. The 50 is at 43.4. So you might even just, if you want to fatten it up and give yourself a fatter target, all the way down to the golden zone here, which would come in, we call it 39, high 39s. This is really where I encourage you to be looking for opportunity. Now that doesn't mean you just sit down here with a limit order. My suggestion always is look for a reaction. If the reaction starts to move, wait for the first retrace, right? On a smaller time frame. I'm on a 2-hour here. Wait for that little retrace. You put your stop under the golden zone or under the pivot if you're inclined, right? Depending on your risk. No, this is not an area to heavily lever up. First thing we're going to hit right there. All right, we gotta get through that. And so that's got to break it, right? We got to do it in a 5. Well, that's a start on it, right? That's just breaking from the 2. We got to break this one, and then we got to break this one, right? So to get through that, we got to get up to really 58, 59. We got to get a good solid close above it. So this would then start to solidify potentially here now as the 4. It would be a shallow 4. Well, let's see. We're in here. Let's call it 40. What are we at here? 40. 41.8. Heads up. If we come down here, look over here. Right, it's right at the prior 100% expansion. That's 40.3. So whichever count you're looking at, this if it's offered down, well, here I would just put an alert, right? Put an alert a couple of I don't know, $200 ahead of that weight of that pivot, so you don't miss it. I'd be very interested at that level. But again, when we started, I wouldn't just buy a little dip right there. I'd be prepared for that to come lower in case the scenario here, the deeper 4 comes. For whatever reason, right, we're just going into the weekend. God knows what happens over the weekend. But I'd be prepared to be buying in this range. Here, I'm going to do it over here because I prefer this count. If we're coming down here towards the median line, which will be a magnet to it, if we come down lower, I'd be looking to ladder all the way, looking for that bounce back out of that. Well, let's see here. That's a 2 hour here. I don't know if there's anything else I have really to add to that. Heads up, guys. That's now. This is not something. Well, let's see. You got to make that distinction between whether or not this is your longer term holding Bitcoin or whether this is your trading Bitcoin. There's a fine line here. I think you could. I think you could use either here, right? This might be a place to add to your longer term holdings. If you're comfortably available to park money there on the idea that even if we go down further, let's just work the scenario. If we were to come down further to 28, 30K, you're not going to need that money because you will have parked it here for a while, right? You'll become a hodler. So if that's the case, then I think you could long-term money here, not a bad thought. Right, if you want to just do the trade, you're trading Bitcoin. Well, then keep the size smaller, but be prepared to ladder in for that move. I think either one is appropriate here because this is just so teed up so nicely. Now that said, right, nothing says we have to come down here. We could be up to this high. Shit, I mean, we could be back to the highs by Monday, right? I don't think that's going to happen, but going into the weekends, you just never know. You just never know. The only other couple of things, let's see if I can find them. Yeah, here I thought was kind of interesting. Take a look here at, this is Bitcoin dominance, right, just in free fall. I did a little reallocating to get into, oh, shit, where's my list of alts here? These are all the alts that I'm in. Just did a re-emphasis away from, in terms of trading capital, a little bit less Bitcoin, a little bit more into the alts. Down here, this is getting interesting. So note here, so I'm just using the last pivot. All right, we've looked at this before, right? Golden zone. I don't, it's unlikely there's an algorithm here trading this, but it's kind of interesting where we pivot. And now as we come down to the 18 lows, we come down here to 35% Bitcoin D. Interesting to look at that. Now here's total 2. Just looks like it's, well, let's go down to an hourly, right? So this is looking a little top heavy up here. So what are you going to call that, right? These look like, this looks like some sort of 4-ish consolidation. We're kind of struggling to get a new high here. You could certainly make a case for a head and shoulders there. So it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So you can just be mindful here. Oh shit, what are we going to do here? A, B, C. We're going to have to do 1, 2. So if it's going to keep going, right, it would have to look like that. This would have to be a 1, 2. This would have to be the 3, 4, and we're going to go up and I got to take that up. We're going to go up and get a new high here. This looks a little top heavy. You certainly would want to see it get beyond this, and right, and you can see the clear head and shoulders. Heads up here, right? So looking at where Bitcoin D down in the, oh shit, what did I just say we were in the where are we here? We're pushing 40%, and total 2 looking a little top heavy. Yeah, this could kick a little further, but at some point, this is likely to start correcting. Just like ETH is likely. Come over to ETH, right? It's kind of the same thing. Over here, take a quick peek up here. Looks like that's getting a little overextended. It's getting actually hard to count it. What do I got? A daily there. Hard not to think 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, even if you run it as a flat or a sort of a triangle. We're getting a little top heavy here. Well, I'm not saying the top is in, right? It just, what's the alternate? If we go 1, 2, we're gonna have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, you would. This would all have to change. If we're gonna keep going, this has to go 3, 4. Right, so this has to be 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 3. You're getting beyond, all right, right, there's 2, 6, 1, 8. Yes, they do go beyond that, but that's boy, we're getting pretty stretched, right? So to see for the idea of this to come back and retrace a bit, right, would just be an opportunity. Well, shit, right? Everybody's looking to buy to get more ETH, right? They're not long enough ETH, right? As we sit here just rip-roaring along, and Bitcoin, getting bad media and bad press at the moment, right? As most people don't understand it. Most people aren't going to read Michael Saylor's analysis. They're not going to read the Pomp letter. They're just going to see CNBC or the local news. Oh my God, Bitcoin is dirty fuel, and that's all they'll need to know to stay away, right? There's going to be plenty of people that will react that way. It's usually when that's the case, that marks a bottom, not a top. Right? So the fact that if the general public's going to back away, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? We want them to participate, but usually they come in here. Their purpose is to provide liquidity for those that know better. I shouldn't probably say it that way, but that's often the case, right? The masses are almost always wrong. I think we can probably agree on that. Not that I shouldn't say. I mean, retail was here before institutions were. So retail has certainly done well, but I'm talking more about the broader public who really doesn't, live and breathe this like we do. But they will get word of the Elon tweet and crypto crashing, right? That's how the media portrays it. Right? It's never, we've had a little sell-off. It's Bitcoin crashes on Elon tweet. That's all they will see. That maybe not a bad thing. Okay, guys. All right, there we go. I rambled on a little bit long there. Okay, let me wrap that up. Let's see. Okay, so live streams are coming. It'll be a mix of what we do in the futures market with NinjaTrader and then what we do here. So you can expect those. You're hoping we're going to get some test runs going over the weekend and maybe able to start that next week. Look for those. We'll make everybody aware of it that's interested in participating in any of that. The whole idea is just to get a little bit more interaction here with our subs and followers and members and everyone else. Okay, guys, there you go. I'll be back. Members, I'll be back on Monday. I didn't do a whole lot of promo here. I always forget to say smash that like button and be sure to subscribe and come over and join us. But I guess you guys know all that. All right, guys, have a good weekend. I'll catch up with you on Monday.